All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is the LASSO Large Animal Solar System Operations Prize informational webinar for stage one of the prize. We're going to get going here in just a minute. I'm going to give a few minutes for folks, well, I'm going to give less than a minute for folks to trickle in. Before we get started, just as a friendly reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the HeroX website following today's presentation. We're very excited that you are all here, and let's go ahead and dive in. Becky, next slide. So I am joined today by Bryn Huxley-Riker from the U.S. Department of Energy Solar Energy Technology Office, as well as Tim Sakota from CEDO as well. You'll be hearing from Bryn a little bit later, and Tim will join us for our Q&A portion of the webinar today. My name is Emily Evans. I'm from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and am one of the prize administrators that are working in partnership with CEDO to run the LASSO Prize. In our presentation today, we're going to go over a variety of items, everything you need to know to get ready for the LASSO Prize and to be successful in phase one. After we're done with the welcome agenda and housekeeping, we're going to go into the background and context of the LASSO Prize with Bryn. Then we'll provide an overview of the LASSO Prize, eligibility criteria, do a deep dive into the phase one submission requirements and the winner selection process. And then we will wrap up with a quick HeroX platform demonstration project, or project demonstration, excuse me. And then should we have some time remaining, we will happily take any questions that you have that we can answer for you. One quick note is that if we are unable to get to all of your questions today, we will provide written responses to all questions received, regardless of whether they are answered live or not, and we will post that to the FAQ roughly about a week after this webinar, and we will post a HeroX update alerting you to when those are up. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Like I said, this webinar is being recorded and will be made publicly available on HeroX along with the PDF of the slide deck. Like I said, we will have time for Q&A. If you do have a question, you are welcome to submit those at any time during today's conversation. We do ask that you submit them during using the Q&A tool. That's going to be at the bottom of your toolbar. It has a little question box with a question mark, and it says Q&A. That will ensure that we are seeing all of your great questions come in and we're not going to miss any. Next slide. All right, and then with no further ado, it's my pleasure to hand things over to Bryn to set the foundation for the LASSO Prize. Bryn, over to you.
Thanks, Emily, and thank you everyone for being here. We're very excited about your interest and the broad interest in the LASSO Prize. My name is Bryn Huxley-Riker. I'm a fellow at the U.S. Department of Energy supporting the Solar Energy Technologies Office, and I have been helping with the LASSO Prize since its inception. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. I want to briefly explain CEDO's motivation for launching LASSO and why CEDO and I believe that it's so important. So the Department of Energy has been investing in agrivoltaics, which we think about as the co-location of solar PV and agricultural production, for almost a decade or more. And that's because agrivoltaics has proven to be able to diversify revenue streams for farmers and landowners, to provide tax revenue to local communities, and to keep land in agricultural use while enabling increased solar deployment and increased solar energy production. We hear excitement about agrivoltaics from a lot of people, ranging from farmers and local government officials to solar developers, conservation groups, and agricultural associations. And it's a very popular and a topic growing in popularity. Sort of related to that, about a year ago, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Renewable Energy, Dr. Becca Jones-Albertus, and the administrator of USDA's Rural Utility Service, Andrew Burke, hosted a series of joint USDA-DOE listening sessions to discuss with as many stakeholders as possible the topic of siting clean energy on farmland. You can see a screenshot of some of those listening sessions announcement page on the screen now. In those listening sessions, we heard lots of concern about the conversion and the loss of farmland, but we also heard a lot of excitement about agrivoltaics. Many people were very interested in ways to avoid putting clean energy development and agriculture at odds, and to find ways to use the same land for both uses. Next slide, please. So CEDO defines agrivoltaics broadly and includes solar co-located with crop production, with pollinator habitat, and the largest category with sheep grazing. We work with a team at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory to track agrivoltaic projects. And as of now, we're aware of almost 8 gigawatts of sheep agrivoltaics at over 200 sites in the US. That's growing fast, but it may be an undercount as this is self-reported and new projects spring up all the time. We've heard from developers that sheep agrivoltaics has proven to be a really good way to manage vegetation, to protect the system and the panels, and to keep high performance from the energy production. We've also heard from grazers that there are a lot of benefits from the panels, including shade for the animals, which helps with protection from heat, as well as increased water retention in the soil. That's made sheep agrivoltaics a rapidly growing field with a lot of interest. Next slide, please. Perfect. But in the US today, we have about 5 million sheep and about 88 million cattle. This has made CEDO and DOE really interested in the possibility of cattle agrivoltaics as a possible tool and a possible way to deploy solar. We know of only a handful of PV systems set up to accommodate cattle, and even fewer that are at commercial scale in the US today. So it's still pretty small, and it's still very new as a concept, which is why CEDO launched the Lasso Prize, which is intended to inspire and support cattle agrivoltaics projects, additional cattle agrivoltaics projects, to help us and anyone else with an interest understand the costs and benefits of cattle agrivoltaics, the true potential in the country, and to figure out and share best practices for design, operation, and business models of cattle agrivoltaics projects. Next slide, please. The last part of CEDO's motivation is related to the comparison that you can see on this slide. So currently, solar photovoltaic projects occupy a very small fraction of land in the US. On the far right, you can see about 0.02% of the contiguous US area as of 2022. DOE analysis indicates that if the electricity system transitions to 100% clean energy by 2035, with solar energy making up the bulk of that, PV projects could occupy about 6 million acres. So that's the second from the right. That square that you see is what could be occupied by large-scale solar photovoltaics in the future if we are transitioning to clean energy. But if we look at the size of the country as a whole and the scale of agricultural land use, that 6 million acres is only about 1% of the land currently used for grazing, which you can see on the far left. And that's crucial because we know that solar photovoltaics isn't suitable for every location, that cattle agrivoltaics won't be suitable everywhere either. But through the Lasso Prize, we want to better understand where cattle agrivoltaics is suitable and how it can provide the most benefits so that solar and cattle agrivoltaics deployment can happen intentionally, converting as little land as possible and helping achieve local and national goals. Finally, I want to note how crucial the teaming aspect of this prize is. Cattle agrivoltaics is new, and there's a lot that we don't know. To make a project work and for the prize to succeed, we think it's going to take teams with a lot of different expertise, from farmers and ranchers to solar developers, researchers, utilities, local governments. We have lots of teaming and support resources, which Emily will cover in a minute, and we're really excited for all of your interest and participation. Can't wait to see your teams and your projects, and that's all I have. Back to you, Emily.
Thank you, Bryn. All right, now that we have a really solid foundation in why CETO and the Department of Energy has stood up and is running the LASSO Prize, let's look at the prize itself. So the LASSO Prize is designed to incentivize pilot cattle agrovoltaic projects across the U.S. So we're looking for new cattle agrovoltaic projects to be developed in order to share designs, results, and provide information as well as best practices. This prize is offering $8 million. That's a total prize pool. In prize awards, there will be 2 tracks. There's a track for new and existing projects. So if you are out there and you have cattle, or a partner that has cattle and you want to develop a cattle agrovoltaic system, there's a track for you that will take you through that development process. And then if you already have a system, there's a separate track for you, which, obviously you don't need to develop the system, but will take you right into the data collection. There are also 2 bonus prizes. There's a bonus prize for the new largest agrovoltaic system over 5 megawatts. And there's also a bonus prize that applies to both tracks for the most valuable data. We'll certainly talk about those in more depth. So like I said, there's 2 tracks. There's the standard and operating projects tracks is what we call them. Track 1, standard track. This again is for teams that are developing new cattle agrovoltaic PV projects in the US. Track 2 is the operating projects track. This is for teams that have existing cattle agrovoltaic PV projects. Projects, an individual project may only be submitted to a single track. So you have to choose if it's either a standard track, if it's a new track, or if it's a new project or an operating project track. Next slide. Here's a visual representation of the prize tracks and phases. So at the top in the blue boxes, you can see the standard track. This will be a 3-phase prize. Phase 1 is happening right now and will run through March 6th. That is the submission deadline. And that's all focused on teaming. We're going to talk a whole lot more about phase 1 during this webinar, but it's all about teaming, getting your project together, and getting ready. Phase 2 is the teams that win phase 1 will move on into phase 2, and that will cover plans and construction and the actual building of the cattle agrovoltaic system. Phase 3 is data collection. We're going to ask competitors who win phase 2 to then provide us with data over the course of 2 years. The operating projects track, it is similar, not similar to the standard track because you already have your system developed. Phase 1, again, is summary information. We're going to be asking you about your project, tell us where you are, who you are, what your project is. And then you will go directly into that data collection phase. So it's identical to standard track phase 3, but it's the operating projects track phase 2. So that is, you just bypass that second phase altogether, go straight to data collection. And then again, we have the bonus prizes, largest PV system over 5 megawatts, that is for standard track teams only. And then the LASSO Data Bounty Prize, which is for both teams participating in standard track phase 3 and operating projects track phase 2. Next slide. So let's look at these 2 tracks in depth, starting with the standard track. To be eligible for the standard track, you have to be developing new cattle agrovoltaic projects. You can have a team with existing PV arrays that plan to introduce cattle into their systems, or you can make alterations to existing arrays before introducing cattle. That is acceptable, but it's really important that all projects include the co-location of cattle grazing and a solar photovoltaic PV system. So there must be cattle grazing and interaction between the systems. So that means really only ground mount projects are eligible, no rooftop PV systems because there is no cattle interaction. Also really important, this prize is only for cattle. It's very specific in its purpose. So we're only looking for livestock that is cattle and not any other livestock such as sheep. All of the PV systems must be a minimum of 250 kilowatts total. Certainly can be larger, but that is the minimum. And then again, projects may only be submitted to a single track. Next slide. Here's some more detail on the standard track prize phases and what you can expect when participating. So phase one, again, that's the phase that we're in now. We're concerned about team formation and project planning. So in your submission, we're going to ask you about who's on your team. All teams have to include a solar developer and a cattle rancher. We're going to ask that you identify a site and develop a plan to integrate PV systems with your cattle. We are also going to be asking about broader team information, project details, narrative, letters of support. Really, the purpose of this is to make sure that you have what you need to be successful in phase two. Phase two is broken up into two separate phases, phase 2A and phase 2B. In phase 2A, you will be finalizing your design, obtaining permits, and submitting an interconnection application. Also notably, teams will be completing a NEPA determination during phase 2A. Teams that are awarded under phase 2A will then move into phase 2B, where you will build the system and demonstrate operational readiness, including proof of cattle integration. So you're actually going to take your plans from phase 2A and then build the systems and integrate the cattle. Teams that are successful in phase 2B will then move into phase 3, data collection of analysis. Like I said, we're looking for 2 years of data on energy production, cattle health, O&M, and other agricultural outcomes. It will be 4 submission deadlines every 6 months. So each 6 months is its own prize phase, and successful teams will be awarded a cash prize at each phase. We are also asking that teams host community events to share insights on system performance and best practices. Other optional data may be submitted for the data bounty bonus prize. Next slide. Here are the cash prizes for the standard track. So you can see here on the left, we tell you the phase and then the number of awards. Then you'll be, as we move right, you'll see the cash prize per team. So that's what you can expect as an individual team, and then the overall prize pool. So in phase 1, we will select up to 14 teams. Each team will receive a $50,000 cash prize. The cool thing about prizes is that prizes are not connected to milestones and deliverables. It is for work that is already done. So when you submit your phase 1 submission and you are successful, you get awarded, you get that $50,000, you can use that $50,000 any way that you see fit in support of your project to be successful in phase 2. Teams that win, and that holds true for all subsequent prizes as well. In phase 2A, we will have a down select from those 14 teams to 7 teams. So the 7 teams with the strongest project plans, due diligence, show the most robust planning for their projects will be awarded $225,000. Again, no strings attached, and then move on into phase 2B. There will not be another down select after phase 2B. So once you get awarded in phase 2A, you are more or less guaranteed a cash prize as long as you meet the requirements of the phase. Phase 2B, you construct your system, you submit proof, we will provide you with another $225,000 cash prize. At this time, we will also be awarding the bonus prize for the largest PV system to the team that has constructed the largest PV system that is over that 5 megawatt threshold, and they will receive an additional $100,000 cash prize. Phase 3 is broken up into 4 6-month phases where we will be providing $100,000 to each team as they're providing us with data. At the end of phase 3, we will select up to one team that is inclusive of both the standard and the operating projects track. So we're only going to choose one team between the two tracks, and they will receive another $100,000. Should you be successful in being awarded both bonus prizes as well as all of the phase awards, your team could be awarded $1.1 million in cash prizes overall. Next slide. I'm not going to talk too much about this except to say that these are the standard track key dates. You'll be able to see these in the official rules, which we'll drop a link to, as well as HeroX. Notably, the most important date for you right now is that March 6, 2025, 5 p.m. Eastern deadline. That is when your phase 1 submission is due. You must submit to phase 1 in order to be considered for subsequent phases. All right, let's look at the operating project track for existing kettle agrovoltaics projects. Very similar eligibility here. Obviously, for the operating projects track, it's for teams that have existing kettle agrovoltaic projects. That means that your system is already built and operational with kettle integrated by the time of phase 1 application. If that does not describe your project, maybe you're in the process of integrating cattle, you still haven't built the system, you may be eligible for the standard track, but not for the operating projects track. Again, projects must include the co-location of cattle grazing photovoltaic systems. Rooftop PV systems are not eligible. All systems still must be a total of 250 kilowatts DC in total. And that is inclusive of only the size of the system that the cattle interact with. So they can't just interact with a small portion, like 50 kilowatts. They have to interact with the entire 250 kilowatts. And again, projects may only be submitted to a single track. Here's more detail on the operating track prize phases. Again, phase 1, 6 months. We're asking you to tell us all about your project, submit project documentation, system specs, cost info, cattle integration details. Again, we are looking to verify projects in phase 1, and then in phase 2, you will go into that data collection and reporting, which I've already explained. So let's keep moving so we have plenty of time for questions. Next slide. Here's the cash prizes. It's laid out in a very similar manner. Notably, there is no down select between phase 1 and phase 2. So as long as you get selected in phase 1, you are guaranteed a phase 2 award as long as you meet all of the requirements for those phases. In phase 3, we will award up to 3 teams with $50,000, and then you will be eligible to move on to phase 2, where again, we will provide you with $100,000 at each of those 4 stages, 2A through 2D, for providing data. You will also be eligible for that data bounty bonus prize along with everyone in the standard track, which will be awarded to one team for $100,000. Next slide. Here are the key dates. Again, notably that March 6th at 5 p.m. Eastern is also your submission deadline if you are participating in this track. All right, let's talk about bonus prizes. So 2 bonus prizes. Bonus prize 1 is for the largest PV system over 5 megawatts. One winner in the standard track will receive a $100,000 cash prize. Again, no strings attached. Only the size of the array that cattle interact with will be considered, and all eligible teams will be automatically considered. So as long as you are an eligible team participating in phase 2B, meaning that you have one phase 2A, you will be automatically entered and considered. So no additional work, which is always good news. The the bonus prize 2, the Lasso Data Bounty. One winner, again, inclusive of those 2 tracks, will receive $100,000 for additional information-rich data sets. This could include detailed time series, energy data, water, soil, quality data. We will be releasing the phase 2, phase 3, depending on your track rules in the near future, and you'll be able to read all about what that entails. Next slide. Eligibility criteria, who can apply? So in general, and this is fully laid out in the official rules document, this is only a summary of kind of the most important eligibility criteria, but I would encourage you to look at all of the eligibility criteria that is in the official rules document. But what's really important to know is that to compete in the Lasso Prize, you must be a private entity, a non-federal government entity, academic institution, individuals who are U.S. citizens. So really open to many different types of competitors as long as you're not a federal government, a U.S. federal government entity or a non-U.S. entity. Important, all individuals that are listed on the team must be legally authorized to work in the United States as well. So that means non-U.S. citizens are not eligible to participate. Non-U.S. based organizations, projects without livestock other than cattle. So that means if you are submitting an agrovoltaic project with sheep or other type of livestock, we have a very narrow focus that is specifically for cattle. Also, projects that are not based in the U.S. and projects that are under 250 kilowatts. All teams must include a solar developer and a rancher. We will be asking you in that phase 1 submission to identify both organizations or individuals who will be playing that role. We do certainly encourage other teammates. The more holistic and robust your team is, the more support that you will have and the greater chances of success that you will have, as we'll see in the scoring. Consider integrating hardware and software manufacturers, local governments, utilities, historically underserved producers and ranchers, researchers, extension programs, all within your team, even universities with expertise in cattle research and agrovoltaics, all help to create a stronger team and a stronger submission. For multiple submissions, competitors are allowed to be part of multiple teams, but there are a few caveats there. Each submission must be for a distinct project or system, so you can't submit the same project twice. And if you are participating on multiple teams, each project must be very distinct. So it's not something like you can build 250 in this part of land and 250 on this, nearby, like right next door. It's nuanced for sure, but we're looking for separate and distinct projects. If you are going to be on the team of more than one, be on more than one team. And then the second important caveat is that a competitor may only be the lead organization on one submission. So you may lead one submission and you can support more than one submission, as long as they're different projects. Next slide. All right, let's look at the phase 1 submission requirements. This is what we're asking you to submit and upload to the HeroX platform by that March 6th deadline. Again, that deadline is at 5 p.m. Eastern. Next. My first piece of advice as a longtime prize administrator is to read the rules. I know it's kind of dry and a little boring, but there really is all the information that you need to know to be successful in the Lasso Prize, in the rules. It has exactly what we're scoring. It has exactly what we're looking for. It is really, really important that you are aware and looking at that document. We have the link to it here, and Becky, if you're able to drop that in the chat, that would be excellent as well. I will also show you where to find it when we do our HeroX demonstration. Next slide. So to participate in the prize, there are 3 main prize steps. One is submission. So form your teams. You should be if you're participating in the prize, you should be thinking about or starting to think about forming your teams and developing your comprehensive project proposals or project descriptions of your PV project that's integrating with cattle grazing. Then you will work to complete your online submission. That's going to be found at HeroX. I'm going to demonstrate exactly where to find that. You will upload all your submission documents and you will click submit. When you click submit, that is when you have formally entered the competition. Then after that submission deadline, we will take all of the submissions, we will review for eligibility, and then we will assign them to panels of expert reviewers. Those expert reviewers then evaluate submissions against the judging criteria that's listed in the official rules document and make recommendations to the Department of Energy selection official, who will make the final decision. Then we will announce winners. They will be publicly announced and notified via email, and we will provide all eligible applications with written comments and feedback. So regardless, you do get written comments and feedback on your project. So here's a description of Lasso as a typical Lasso team. A team is composed of multiple competitors, team members, and a lead competitor. The lead competitor will be the one who actually goes in and submits the HeroX submission. They're listed on the submission form as lead competitor, and the lead competitor is our main point of contact. They will also be the person/organization who is paid and who is then responsible for distributing winnings or not per team agreement. So it's really important that when you're forming your teams, in addition to making them up holistically with many different disciplines and knowledge bases, that you are also choosing a lead competitor to be the head and point of contact for the team. Like we said in eligibility, all team members must meet the eligibility criteria in the official rules. Next slide. And just to emphasize that forming teams is really essential for Lasso Prize success. Again, we are looking for teams to include at a minimum both a solar developer, a rancher, and or a farmer. But again, please do consider including other multidisciplinary members. Again, we talked about that list: government, academic researchers, extension programs. That is going to help you be successful in this and demonstrate your commitment to building these systems, to gathering this data, to helping to lift up and improve this industry overall. In this vein, we have provided competitors with several resources for helping you to form teams. One is a HeroX teaming resource. That resource is available on HeroX. You can submit your name and your project, company, organization to the resource. It will get added to the database of folks who are looking for team members. You are welcome to reach out, email, and get in touch independently using that form. Separately, we are very lucky to have the support of ADL Ventures. They are a free resource for competitors to help with teaming, to help answer questions. We'll talk a little bit more about them and ways to get engaged in the future. And just to emphasize, to start forming your team now for your phase 1 submission. Next slide. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's look at the standard track phase 1 submission requirements. So we're going to ask you to submit 5 things if you are participating in the standard track phase 1 competition. One is going to be team and project information. This is required, and select elements will be made public. That is noted in both the official rules and the HeroX submission form. We're going to ask you about your project, about who's on your team, lead competitor, so that we have a full picture of who will be supporting this project if selected. Then we will be asking for a narrative. This is a written description of your project and your plans. This is required and will not be made public. We will also ask for a summary PowerPoint slide, which is also required and will be made public. We do provide a template. If you would like to use it, you don't have to use it. It's just there for your benefit. The summary PowerPoint slide is really nice because after we announce winners, you'll be able to go in and see all the projects that were selected and submitted to the prize. You are also asking for letters of support. Again, this is required, but will not be made public, and optional supporting documentation if there's other things that you would like to submit for consideration, again, to bolster your case as to why your project should be selected. Next slide. In the team and project information, here's a list of what you can expect to see on the HeroX submission form. This is a copy and paste from the rules document. Pretty basic, but just so that you're aware when you're headed into HeroX. Next slide. Team and project information continued. So here you'll see a little bit more about the total PV size, what's the status of your site control, where you're expecting the project to be located. Tell us a little bit more about your cattle and an executive summary. Next slide. Then the narrative is broken up into 3 sections. There's category 1, 2, and 3. Category 1, we're going to ask you to provide us with questions around the organization or organizations that are participating, the partnerships and collaborations. So tell us all about who you are, why you're here, and the different partners and roles that will contribute to your project success. In category 2, we're asking you to go into depth about your proposed project design. Tell us all about how you propose to build your systems, how big it will be, and your plans for integrating with cattle grazing. And then category 3 is about benefits, impact, and scalability. We're going to ask you to describe the economic, environmental, and social benefits of your project. If it were me, I would organize my narrative into these 3 categories very specifically. When the expert reviewers are going through, they will be looking for this information because it relates directly to the judging criteria. So the more simply and easily that you can make it for reviewers to find this information, the easier it's going to be to make sure that there's that your project is being showcased in the best light. So that is my second top tip after reading the official rules, is to lay out your narratives as simply as possible and make sure that you're following the same structure. Next slide. Here's an example PowerPoint summary slide. You can see here it's real simple. If there's information that you don't want to put on here because you'd like to keep it private, knowing that this slide will be made public, you're more than welcome to do so. Often this is the place where expert reviewers will start to just get kind of the overview of your project. But again, if there's information that you don't want to include, you are in complete control of how this information is presented. Next slide. Letters of support, we are requiring all letters of support from all team members who are not the lead. So if they are listed on your application as a team member, they do need to submit a letter of support describing their role in the project and how they will be contributing to the project, and also plans for collaboration. You can also include optional letters of support from outside your team. This could be from other community members, stakeholders, anyone else who will help to support your team, but maybe isn't a part of the team itself. Next slide. Supporting documentation, this is kind of a blank slate. You have 15 additional pages where you can upload anything that you think helps to provide more credibility to your project planning. This could be site control documentation, feasibility studies, technical specs, whatever you feel is important. This is really up to you of how you want to use it or not. Next. Evaluation criteria. We're going to be scoring the standard track in 3 categories plus an overall reviewer recommendation. The categories are Category 1, organizations, partnerships, and collaborations. So again, we're looking at things like team and other team members. Do you have a holistic plan? You'll see here on the right a screenshot of what this looks like in the official rules. There are these individual statements which the reviewers will be looking at and taking into consideration as they're providing a 0 to 6 score on the category as a whole. This can be found in section 3.71 as the rules stand currently. Just a note, as we are releasing rules for the next phases, that section number may change, but as long as you're in standard track phase 1 evaluation criteria, you'll be able to see these same statements. Category 2, proposed project design, and Category 3, benefits, impact, and scalability. So you'll see that these evaluation criteria areas closely mirror what we're asking for in the narrative. However, other submission items of your submission package will be evaluated as well. So keep that in mind, that the submission package as a whole and not just the narrative is being evaluated. And then the final is just a reviewer recommendation. We ask our reviewers as an overall assessment, do you recommend this, this project for award or not? Next. We talked a little bit about how we select winners, so I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time here, but essentially after we perform the eligibility check, we assign submissions to a panel of expert reviewers. You can expect your submission to get reviewed by a minimum of 3 expert reviewers, and we pull from different disciplines, regional experts, as well as technical and agricultural experts to help us review these submissions in addition to DOE and NREL experts. Reviewers will score each category that we just described, 0 to 6 points, and the final reviewer recommendation. We then add those together to generate a total score for the submission. The total scores from each reviewer are then averaged, and then this score does inform the judges, which is DOE's final decision on prize awards. One note is that the final determination of winners, it's not just that we choose the top 3 highest scoring or the top 14 highest scoring teams. We take a variety of information into consideration when selecting winners. We of course look at scores, but also reviewer feedback, interviews if applicable. You'll see in the rules there is a provision that if we need to reach out to teams to have an interview to ask clarifying questions, we are allowed to do that, as well as application of program policy factors. You can find these program policy factors in the appendix, but they consist of things like geographic diversity. We don't want to award all 14 teams in one state, and the size of the PUD system. Next slide. All right, let's look at the operating projects track. I have an eye on time. We're going to move a little bit quickly here. The phase 1 operating projects track has a very similar format. It's team and project information, narrative, a summary PowerPoint slide, and letters of support. Next. Team and project information, this is going to look very similar, although we will add some more in-depth information about your project since it's already built. Next slide. So you can see this here. This also closely mirrors what is in the official rules document, and this slide deck will also be posted on HeroX. Next slide. We're also going to be asking for more documentation in this team and project information. This includes engineering designs and drawings or as-built, fully executed interconnection agreements, any applicable land use or permit approval that you may have received from your AHJ, and then a photo of the array with cattle. Next slide. The narrative is a little bit longer for the operating projects track. Category 1, we're going to ask you about your organization's partnerships collaboration, very similar to standard track. Category 2 is the design of the existing project. You're going to tell us all about your existing project. Category 3 is cattle integration. Talk about your cattle. and how you have integrated it into the system. Category 4, getting ready for phase 2 and the data collection, is going to be your plans for data collection, and category 5 is benefits, impact, and scalability. Again, you can see here on the you can see there on the right on the last slide that we have listed exactly what we would like you to describe, although you can of course choose where the content that you would like to include. This is in the official rules section 5.6.2. Thanks, Becky. Next slide. Again, summary PowerPoint slide, same rules apply for it as we just discussed in the standard track. Next slide. Letters of support. Exactly same as standard track. We're looking for letters of support from all team members who are not the lead, and you may also include those optional letters of support as well. Next slide. Evaluation criteria. Again, this closely mirrors what we just talked about in the narrative. We will have separate criteria statements that closely relate to the narrative, but also takes into consideration the whole of your submission package in addition to that reviewer recommendation. Next. Selecting winners follows the exact same process as the standard track. We assigned your submissions to experts. They will evaluate, score, we will get those scores back, and then we'll take that into consideration with the other factors that we just described for the standard track. Next slide. All right, let's switch gears and take a look at HeroX. If there's one thing that you can do to ensure your success, well, not sure if it support your success in, let's see here, in your success in phase 1 is to sign up for HeroX. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm having some trouble with sharing, Becky. If you don't mind, hold on, let me see here. Let me try again. Wow. That's one. All right.
I'll stop sharing and you might be able to. So go for it if you can now.
Oh. I have it. Give me just one moment.
Okay.
New computer problems. Oh, okay. Let's see here. Becky, do you mind pulling up the HeroX website? Are you able to do that easily?
Sure. Let me. Good thing I have it going already. Let me see if I can share it.
You're the best.
That's very nice of you. All right, let's share that. Can everybody see that? Okay, perfect.
Yes, it's a little bit. Can you zoom out?
Hold on just a second. Nope. Did we get the right one? No, we did not. Hold on. All right, does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay,
wonderful.
Perfect.
All right, so stay right there. So the first thing you want to do is click that follow button. Becky is already following, but it's in the top right-hand corner there. You're going to click on follow. This is going to ensure that you receive all of the Lasso Prize updates and notifications and make sure you don't miss anything. This will require you to create a HeroX account. It's very simple. It's just like every other online account you've ever created to be able to do this. Then if you scroll down a little bit, Becky, your next step to actually get to the submission form will be to click on the Solve This Challenge button. So click on that button, scroll down, this is the prize competitor agreement, read it and click accept. And then you will have options to create your own team or to compete individually. The option to create your own team will allow you to invite others to collaborate on your HeroX submission, but you certainly don't have to select this option and you don't have to invite everyone to HeroX. and you can still be a team. But my recommendation would be to create your own team just so that you have the option of having other people shown visibly on your team on HeroX. So Becky, go ahead and click that top one. And then you'll be able to add the emails of your team members. Becky, if you go down, you go up, go back, hit the back arrow, yeah. So then you can go back out of this and then scroll down again, and then you'll have a button that says begin entry. You will click that button to begin your entry, and that's going to take you to the submission form. So this is where you're going to upload all that information that we were talking about, as well as all of the documentation that is required. Go ahead and go back. All right, and then if you can go down to the middle, here is where you will find information about the prize. There are different tabs here in the middle. There's the summary, timeline, update, form, teams, entries, resources, and FAQ. Timeline is going to show you all of the timeline, all of the time information that you need to know about the prize. It will have all of the events. You'll be able to see, if we scroll down, the informational webinar that you're at here today, as well as Power Connector office hours with ADL Ventures. We'll get to this slide, but just a quick plug for ADL. ADL is a long time member of the solar developer ecosystem. They have helped us to support many of these different prize challenges, and they are very, very knowledgeable. They can help with advising you on your submissions, as well as helping you to identify team members. So to get in contact with them, we encourage you to join one of these group sessions. Updates, you'll be able to see all the updates. So when we do post the rules for the next phases of the prize, we will make an announcement. We announce when webinars are happening. This is a great place to stay engaged on the prize. The forum, you can connect with your fellow competitors and ask questions that can be seen by all. You can ask questions of the prize team, of other competitors, and then go to resources, Becky. Resources, this is really important. This is where you're going to see the official rules. This is where we're going to post the webinar recording and slides, instructions on how to register on HeroX, the teaming form, as well as that phase 1 submission summary slide template. So all really good things to be aware of. And then the FAQ, if you have a question of the prize, it is very likely that someone else has already asked it. So you are welcome to go to our combined Lasso Prize FAQ. You can see all the FAQs from the previous webinar, as well as any question that we get asked to the form or to the email, so that all competitors have the exact same information. But the number one thing you can do right now, if you haven't already, is to follow the prize. Make sure that you're signed up and ready to go. If you do have a question that's not in the FAQ, you can always reach out to us at lasso.prize@nrel.gov. Thank you, Becky. Let's go back to the slide deck. All right. Let's go to ADL Ventures. All right, ADL Ventures is a fabulous resource. We talk a little bit about their office hours and how they can support you. To reach out to them, you can email them at lasso@adlventures.com to connect. You can also visit that resource that's listed in the resources section of HeroX to get engaged with them. And I would highly recommend you do so. They are a wealth of knowledge and expertise, and they will also help to connect you and support teaming as well. Next slide. Phase 1 technical assistance. We do have some technical assistance coming up from our NREL agrovoltaic researchers. NREL has a very robust agrovoltaic research team, and we are very lucky that we are going to get to learn from them over the course of this prize as you get ready for phase 1. So that's going to look like January 8th. We're going to have a webinar on agrovoltaic design basics. Then on the 22nd, we will have an open office hours. Show up, have some questions. February 5th, we will talk about data collection. And then on February 19th, we will have another office hours. Again, follow the prize on HeroX and you will get notified of when this registration goes live for these events. Next slide. All right, we're going to go into Q&A. My deep apologies. I've only left this a few minutes for Q&A, but we had a lot of information to get through. Let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive in right now. We'll leave this up just so that you're aware of your next steps as a competitor. Thank you, Bryn. I'm welcoming back Bryn and Tim to the stage floor for Q&A. And I am going to go ahead and walk us through our questions. So the first question is, how many acres are expected to be used to produce the minimum 250 kilowatt direct current previously determined by the LASSO project request? So how do we determine that?
Yeah, this is a great question. We are not setting a acreage minimum. I think the utility scale solar projects generally occupy about 2 or more acres for a system of that size of 250 kilowatts, but this may not be a standard installation. We recognize that. We recognize that it may be larger or designed differently. So no minimum acreage required.
Perfect. Thank you, Bryn. In that similar vein, is there a cow per acre ratio that we're expecting?
So again, no minimum ratio required. The only caveat or point of clarification on that is, the goal of the LASSO prize is to prove out the viability and the scalability of cattle agrivoltaics. So we want to make sure that first and foremost, animals are healthy and safe. Second, that the system and the business models work. And so we're leaving things like animal ratio and stocking rate up to teams, but knowing that we're hoping that this shows that there are business models and designs that can be scaled to larger sizes in other places.
Perfect. And so I know you just said that there is no cattle per acre. Do you want to talk a little bit about how competitors will need to take into other considerations like growing seasons and forage types, weathers and other factors into that region and how that might affect?
Yeah, so one of the key things that teams are going to submit is a grazing management plan, where teams, the people who are experts in raising and operating cattle, the people who are experts in raising and managing cattle will be planning for how they will do that given the PV system. So we're expecting those plans to take into account the locality, the climate, the weather, the forage availability, all of those other location-specific factors, and to, again, prioritize animal health and well-being, the success of the agricultural operation, as well as the success of the photovoltaic system. So we expect that to be different across the country and project by project. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Bryn. Great question. Since you are calling this a prize and not a grant, who is responsible for the taxes? And will that cut into regulation costs, construction costs? Is there a DOE tax exemption? Tim, you want to take this one?
Yeah, DOE doesn't set tax rules, to answer the last part of the question. Overall, any questions that you have regarding any sort of taxable income, whether that be grants or cooperative agreements or prizes, like the LASSO prize, should be directed to the IRS or your tax professional. As DOE and NREL, we're not able to offer tax advice.
Thank you, Tim. Next question. Can an agricultural university with a farming operation count as the farmer? Bryn, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so short answer is yes. We at DOE and NREL are not trying to define what a farmer is, but for the purposes of the prize, a university can be the entity that manages the cattle. Again, just want to flag again that we're intending this prize to show viability and be replicable and scalable elsewhere, and to show that there is a viable business model. So as long as the university is showing those things, that's totally fine.
Excellent. We are at noon, but we only have 2 questions left that we were hoping to answer. So let's power through those. Again, if we do not get to your question or we answered them via written response, we will be publishing written responses to all questions following the webinar. Next question, is there a minimum number of cows required and a minimum number of acres or acres for grazing area to be qualified for the program? Bryn, you want to take that?
Yeah, just same answers as to the similar questions that we answered before. So no minimum number of cattle, no minimum number of acres, but looking for well-being, success, and replicability and scalability.
Great, thanks for reiterating that. And then finally, any restrictions on the use of energy contracts, PPAs, or behind-the-meter connections?
This is a great question. So our only restriction is that the system has to be grid tied. It has to be interconnected. Whether the energy is used primarily or entirely on site is up to the team, whether it's sold in a PPA or through some net metering structure. However teams want to handle that is up to them. With the same flag that we're looking for replicability and scalability elsewhere, and proving out a viability of a business model. So as long as that whatever the team chooses to do aligns with those goals, totally fine.
All right, I do have some more questions coming in, but we're just going to go through this one, and then we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Are CAFOs and dairies able to apply? These are for areas where cattle are in pen stocks for eating feed while they are waiting to be milked. In Arizona, they also need shade, which the solar canopies can benefit them.
Yeah, so this is a great question. We're really prioritizing grazing co-location with PV systems. So feed stocks, pen stocks are ineligible for this prize. We do recognize and agree that there's a lot of benefit and use for shade structures, and that solar can be a really good option for those places. But for this prize in particular, we're specifically looking for grazing co-location. That being said, dairies are definitely eligible with that clarification.
Amazing. And with that, I would want to say a huge thank you to all of our participants today for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn about this great opportunity. We're really excited that you're here, and we can't wait to see your phase 1 submission. Huge thanks to both Bryn and Tim for your help with co-hosting today and answering questions. Becky, thank you as always for all of your support in the background and for sharing the HeroX screen today. And that concludes our webinar. Again, if you have any questions, we are always here. You can message us on the HeroX form or at lasso.prize@nrel.gov. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our webinar.
Thank you.